Columbo has rented an apartment, not for himself, not for a friend. He has rented it with his own money, furnished it to look lived in, stocked the kitchen, hung clothes in the closet, and planted the address in a police file where only one person will ever find it. The apartment is a trap, and the person it is designed to catch is not a socialite or a surgeon or a celebrity. It is the Deputy Commissioner of the Los Angeles Police Department, Columbo's own boss. That is the setup for A Friend Indeed, and it is unlike anything else in the series. Not because the murder is the most elaborate Columbo has ever investigated. It is not. Not because the killer is the most brilliant adversary he has ever faced. He is not. But because this is the only case where catching the murderer means Columbo has to go through his own department, challenge the chain of command that employs him, and accept that if he is wrong, he loses everything. His badge, his pension, his career, his standing within the institution he has served his entire adult life. Every other Columbo episode ends with a killer in handcuffs and a detective who goes home to his wife and his dog. This one could end with the detective being the one who does not come back. Mark Halperin is played by Richard Kiley, and he is a fundamentally different kind of Columbo adversary. Most killers on the show are wealthy, cultured, and operating outside the law enforcement world entirely. They are surgeons, conductors, filmmakers, wine connoisseurs, military officers. They have power and status within their own domains, but Columbo operates in his, and the two worlds meet only at the point of investigation. Halperin is the exception that changes everything. He operates in Columbo's domain. He is Deputy Commissioner. He controls assignments. He has access to case files, evidence rooms, forensic labs, and departmental resources that no civilian suspect could touch. When he decides to commit murder, he does not just have the intelligence to plan it. He has the institutional authority to interfere with every stage of the investigation that follows. Halperin murders his wife, Margaret. The motive is financial. He needs the money, and he needs Margaret out of the way to get it. He stages the scene to look like a burglary gone wrong, the kind of random violent crime that the LAPD handles hundreds of times a year and that rarely makes the front page. It is not a sophisticated plan in the way that Carcini's wine or Keppel's subliminal images are sophisticated. It is a brutal plan designed to disappear into the noise of ordinary crime statistics where no one would think to look closely. But here is where the case becomes something Columbo has never faced before. Halperin's neighbor, Hugh Caldwell, has also committed a murder. Caldwell kills his own wife separately for entirely different reasons. These are two independent crimes committed by two different men with two different motives in the same neighborhood at roughly the same time. Halperin, using his investigative instincts and his access to departmental information, discovers what Caldwell has done, and instead of reporting it, he offers to help cover it up. The arrangement is mutual protection. Halperin helps Caldwell deal with the evidence from his crime. In return, Caldwell's murder creates confusion and additional cover for Halperin's own killing. Two dead wives in the same neighborhood, two crime scenes with overlapping details, two sets of evidence that become tangled together in ways that make it almost impossible to follow either thread to its source. And the one person who could untangle the mess is the same person who created the entanglement. Halperin uses his authority as deputy commissioner to move evidence between scenes, redirect investigative attention away from himself, and ensure that the two cases remain confused in the minds of everyone working them. Columbo knows. He knows early, the way he always does, from a detail that does not sit right, from something in the scene that feels arranged rather than accidental. But knowing and proving are different problems in every Columbo episode, and in this case, the gap between them is wider than it has ever been. Because the person Columbo needs to prove guilty is the person who controls the investigation. Halperin can reassign the case to a different detective. He can bury evidence in departmental channels. He can question Columbo's judgment in front of other officers. He can make Columbo's professional life impossible without ever acknowledging why. And everything he does will look like routine administrative authority rather than obstruction of justice. This is the dynamic that makes A Friend Indeed unique in the entire Columbo canon. In every other episode, Columbo operates with the full, if sometimes reluctant, support of the LAPD behind him. The killers are civilians. They can lie, obstruct, hire expensive lawyers, and refuse to cooperate. But they cannot touch Columbo's badge. They cannot transfer him off the case. They cannot access the evidence he has collected and make it disappear through official channels. Halperin can do all of those things. He does not even need to be explicit about the threat. It is structural. Built into the hierarchy, a lieutenant who publicly accuses a deputy commissioner of murder and turns out to be wrong does not get reassigned, he gets destroyed. If you are finding this analysis useful, subscribing helps the channel continue producing these deep dives into classic television. So Columbo builds a trap that requires something no other case in the series has ever demanded from him: personal financial risk, career risk, the possibility of complete professional ruin. He rents an apartment out of his own pocket. He furnishes it carefully enough that it looks like someone actually lives there. Then he plants the address in a restricted police file, a file that only someone with Halperin's clearance level and Halperin's specific operational motive would have any reason to access. The logic of the trap is precise and merciless. Halperin has been manipulating evidence to frame suspects and misdirect the investigation away from himself. Columbo gives him one more suspect to frame. The fake apartment is bait. If Halperin takes the jewelry he stole from his murdered wife and plants it at the apartment address, he will have done two things simultaneously. First, he will have proved that he still had possession of evidence from Margaret's murder, evidence that should have been in police custody or should never have existed if the burglary story were true. Second, he will have proved that he accessed the restricted file containing the planted address, something only the guilty party would need to do and only someone with Deputy Commissioner clearance could accomplish. Halperin takes the bait. He plants the jewelry at the apartment Columbo set up, and when it is recovered, the case is closed, not because Halperin confessed, not because a witness came forward with testimony, but because Columbo built a physical proof that could only be activated by the guilty party's own actions, a trap that required the killer to incriminate himself through the very institutional power he had been using to protect himself. The trap is brilliant, but what makes it extraordinary is not the cleverness, it is the stakes. Consider what happens if Halperin does not take the bait. Columbo has rented an apartment with his own money. He has planted false information in an official police file. He has set up an unauthorized sting operation targeting his own superior officer without departmental approval or oversight. If the jewelry never shows up at that apartment, Columbo is not just wrong about the case, he is insubordinate. He has fabricated information in a case file. He has spent departmental time and his own resources on an operation that produced nothing. He has done exactly the kind of thing that ends a career in law enforcement, not with a dramatic confrontation, but with a quiet disciplinary hearing and a penchant forfeiture. Every other Columbo trap carries professional risk in theory. The camera lineup in Negative Reaction involves a lie about destroyed evidence. The subliminal images in Double Exposure involve psychological manipulation of a suspect. But in those cases, the worst outcome for Columbo is that the trap fails and the killer walks free, which is bad but survivable. In A Friend Indeed, the worst outcome is that Columbo himself is destroyed by the institutional machinery he chose to challenge. The badge he put on the line is the badge he would lose. That is what makes this episode essential to understanding who Columbo is beneath the raincoat and the cigar and the fumbling act. The show built its identity on a detective who is smarter than the people he catches. A Friend Indeed reveals something deeper. Columbo is not just smart, he is willing to risk everything he has built over an entire career, his professional standing, his financial security, his reputation within the department, on the conviction that he is right. Not arrogance, conviction. The quiet certainty of a man who looked at the evidence, followed it where it led, and refused to stop because the trail pointed at someone who could end him. Most Columbo episodes are about power flowing downward. A wealthy, privileged killer looks down at the rumpled detective in the shabby raincoat and underestimates him. The pleasure of the show is watching that underestimation become the killer's undoing. A Friend Indeed inverts the flow completely. The power is real. Halperin can actually hurt Columbo in ways that no civilian killer ever could. He can take the badge, the career, the pension, and Columbo goes after him anyway. Not because the system supports him or because his superiors have his back, but because his own integrity demands it, and he will not let institutional authority override what the evidence is telling him. There is one more thing that makes this case different from every other episode, and it is easy to miss. In most Columbo stories, the trap is designed to produce evidence that will hold up in court. The camera identification in Negative Reaction, the subliminal retrieval of the gun in Double Exposure, the wine-tasting gotcha in Any Old Port in a Storm. All of these create a moment where the killer reveals knowledge that only the guilty party could possess. The audience sees the trap succeed and understands that the case will proceed through the legal system from there. In A Friend Indeed, the stakes of the trap are higher because Halperin could use his position to challenge the trap itself. He could argue that the file was planted, that the apartment was entrapment, that a lieutenant had no authority to set up a sting against a deputy commissioner without going through proper channels. The trap does not just need to work. It needs to work so cleanly and so conclusively that Halperin's institutional power cannot unwind it after the fact. And it does, because the jewelry in the apartment is physical evidence that speaks for itself, placed there by Halperin's own hands in a location he should never have known existed. The fake apartment is not just a trap for a killer. It is a statement about what a badge means when the person who threatens it is the person who issued it. Columbo does not go around Halperin. He does not leak to the press. He does not wait for internal affairs to act or for someone else to take the risk. He builds the case himself, funds the trap himself, takes the risk himself, and stands behind the result himself. The apartment is the most audacious thing Columbo ever does across the entire run of the series, because it is the one time the investigation could have cost him more than a late night and a wrinkled suit. What would you have done in Columbo's position? Would you have gone after a deputy commissioner knowing what it could cost you? I would like to hear your answer in the comments. And if this kind of character analysis is what you look for in a classic television channel, subscribing makes sure the next one reaches you.